Welcome to Class 4 of the mini-series, and in this class we're talking about the natural thought process. This is what we call the fourth part of the 24 life ingredients, and the life ingredients are what we need to be able to create the life that we want using the powers that we were born with. So everybody has access to these powers. We were all born with them, and now it's a question of how do we regain that power. See, through the way society is, we've been trained away from our natural powers, and we've been trained to believe a lot of things that just aren't true. And so as we start to rediscover what our powers are, then we can create a much happier life, we can create a much more fulfilling life. And so, as with each of these free classes, there's a exercise that I provide for it. There's everything has, because everything that we have comes as it starts with thought and becomes our physical reality. So there's a physical part and there's a spiritual part. So mind, body. So when we can use our thought process the best way possible, then we create the best physical life possible. So in the first classes, so 1, 2, and 3, we covered that life is a series of connected and related experiences. Important to know that when we change each tiny experience that goes into creating the bigger experience, that's where we make the real change in life. It's the only place where we can make change. Then we looked at the world as being perfect as it is. I know that goes counter to what a lot of people have been trained to believe, but when we look at what does life teach us about that, what does life teach us about life being perfect as it is, and how do we feel when we take that on? So these are things that in those other classes to experiment with. Then we started to realize, okay, well, we've got a certain way that we are, and we keep recreating the same problems over and over, the same lifestyle over and over. So why does that happen? Well, we've got a subconscious that's filled with a series of this is how we do things. So even when we go and see a motivational speaker and we feel really inspired, we're just consciously, we're going to make all the changes and we're just going to be in this great new world. But then a few months later, we find ourselves back stuck where we were before. And that's because our subconscious is a very powerful tool that keeps us on track in what we believe is the way we should be, and we don't change easily from that. But in order to change, and this is what we found in class 3, is that as we can understand what's in our subconscious, so every time we hear something like snow or ice cream, anything at all, there's a subconscious flash of what we really think. And as we get in tune with that, now we're able to start to say, okay, so if that's the way I think, that's what I believe, and then we can start to challenge our beliefs and start to build new beliefs on that. Now, in this class, in the fourth one, we're going to look at what I call the natural thought process. And the reason this is so significant is that if you're feeling, you can be feeling great, you can be feeling anxious, you can be feeling completely depressed, suicidal. And it's all connected to the way that we're using the natural thought process, or rather the way we're abusing the natural thought process. So we'll go through a quick rundown on that, how it all works, and then we'll come to an exercise where we're going to practice a little bit of how to use it. Then, so the place to start is to realize that how do we actually gain any confidence in life? How do we gain motivation to do anything? How do we gain inspiration to do anything? And if we look at what life shows us, then we can test this out for ourselves. So you don't have to believe what I say or what anybody else says. You just go to your own feelings. Is this actually true? Is this how life works? That's the questions you want to constantly ask through this whole series. Is this how this really works? Because once you see for yourself this is how it works, then it's not a question anymore of if it works, it's just a question of how do you want to use it. So in the natural thought process, the first thing is we observe things through all of our senses. And when we observe something, then we can also observe how do we feel about what we've observed. And that's the very beginning, that's the starting point. We observe people doing things, we observe smells, we observe sounds, and how do we feel about that? Does it positively inspire us, or does it negatively inspire us? Now, for people that are stuck where you just don't know where to move forward and how to move forward anymore, and it's just, you've got anxiety and you've got stress and you've got depression even, and you're like, regardless how severe that is, once we can take on the ownership of that, when we say, well, I caused my life because my thoughts caused my outcome, and even if that's a little bit hard to accept at the moment, keep it on the back burner, keep it in sight, and start to experiment with what's possible, because that's your most powerful place to change your life from, is if somebody else did this to you and now your life is miserable because of what somebody else did, now you're relying on other people to change it so you can have a life. But if you say, well, I caused this, I don't know how, but I caused it, I'm taking ownership of it, that means I can change it. And once I realize I caused it, I can change it, now it opens a whole new world for me. Because when I say, okay, so if I start to look at, and we've all heard it all sounds good, think positive and be positive, but there's no, but how? How does that actually work? So in the natural thought process, when we observe something negative and we feel negative about it, then that's a guide. We can say, okay, so I don't like that, and I can move towards something more positive. Or if I observe something positive, I see something that I like, I might want to try, and then I feel inspired by it. Now, if I'm only a little bit inspired, then I'm only going to have a little bit of confidence and a little bit of motivation to do something. But if I observe more and more about that, then I'm going to, let's put something to, let's say, like if you're going to try a hobby, you're going to try something new. You might want to try painting, or you might want to try singing or dancing or something. And then you see something and you feel a little bit inspired about it. But then you observe more about it, and now you notice that the more you observe, the more inspired you become, the more the level of your confidence and your inspiration and your motivation all increase with that altogether. So it really shows a real balance in the universe of how everything is so finely balanced. So now, the more inspired we become, the more motivated we become, the more confident we become. So consider this to be like those round, those spiral driveways going in a parking garage from one level to the next. And keep in mind that those spirals go down underground as well into all those different levels below ground. So when we're becoming negatively inspired, so we're seeing negative and we're getting more and more negative about our lives, till eventually we become so negative that we become suicidal. And this is all based on what we're focusing on. You see, whatever we focus on, whatever's in our heart, whatever we feel, is what the universe puts more of in front of us. So if we're feeling negative, we're going to see more negative. And if we're feeling more positive, we're going to see more positive, because it's what we're looking for. They're both there. Both sides are always there. There's a negative and positive to everything. But if we're focused on the negative of it, then we'll always be seeing that. But if we're focused on the positive, we'll always see that. And so if we use some of the other lessons that we've got from the previous classes, so, okay, we know that it's all micro experiences. We can't do anything else but micro experiences. We didn't have kindergarten in one experience. That was a whole series of micro experiences. We didn't have a relationship, or we don't have all these, like a good night's sleep. It's a series of micro experiences that come together to create the macro experience. And there's a huge amount of power in that, because as we say, okay, so as we went through some of the other exercises where we start to explore, do the breathing, be in a state of calm, and start to look at, okay, so if I don't enjoy my morning routine, what are the micro experiences I can change to create a new routine? And that applies to everything in every area of your life. So if you're dealing with anxiety right now and you're wanting to change from that, well, then you realize that anxiety comes from having stopped making observations. We're no longer observing the world in a conscious way. All we're doing is on autopilot. We're automatically observing the negatives, and the more negatives that we observe, the farther we spiral down towards depression. And being in a space of where you have anxiety, where you have depression, it becomes difficult to turn around because we're so used to doing it. But it's not difficult when we realize that it's up to us to make that turnaround, to start to looking for the positive in things. Start observing things, and instead use the negatives, instead of crashing into the negatives, use them as the concrete curb on a roadway, and start being guided away from the negative and go towards the positive. Stay on the more smoothly paved surface of the positive. Now, at first, like with everything else, it's harder to do it because every time you're consciously reminding yourself to go towards the positive. But the same way that we went into becoming anxious and becoming depressive because of our observations, or because at first because of the lack of observations, and then the natural progression into negatives. Now, when we start to observe the positive, we say, okay, so why would I even look at things positive if I feel that life is going against me? And that's one of the key things that you'll pick up from some of the other classes, is how does the universe actually work? And how can I use that power, plus the power that I have myself of my own thought, to create a better life? So all this is available in the classes for you. But for this one, so let's do an exercise. So again, we're going to do the breathing. We're going to breathing in through all of our pores, but like starting physically through our nose, but feeling that we're breathing in through our whole body. And then we're breathing in new energy, a whole new energy that is always there from the universe. And then we're going to breathe out all the exhausted things, all the negativity, anything we don't need anymore. And so that's what we have in the back of our mind. And so we're breathing, we're relaxed. And now we're thinking about, okay, so what observations have I made lately? What am I even consciously observing things? And am I observing how I feel about that? So look around you and recognize you've become used to seeing everything that you see. And you have a certain way of feeling about everything you see. But what happens when you start to just change things around? What happens when you start to look at different things? So if you're in a habit of watching certain TV programs or spending a certain amount of time doing certain things, try to break that routine and start to observe different things. Because the more you observe different things, now start to observe, how do you feel about that? So if you're stuck in life and you don't know what to do, look at what other people are doing and see how are they entertaining themselves? How are they occupying their time? What are they doing? And then as you observe what they're doing, you'll see, oh, no, that's not for me. Or this is, hey, that could be interesting. And then you start to explore that, and then observe your own levels of inspiration, and then watch how your confidence goes up, the more that you observe about something. So let's say that you see something about singing or dancing or art or something, and then at first you think, no, I couldn't possibly do that. But then when you observe a little bit more and a little bit more, then you'll notice that your confidence starts to increase. And you think, well, maybe I could. And then, so you just grow from there. But that's how the natural thought process works. The more that you observe, the more that you go towards if you're going towards the negative, you're going to get more negative. If you're going to go towards the positive, you get more positive. And it's a choice that you make. So use these videos, go through them, follow, so that you get you have the links. If you get stuck, just go to John Verway 2020 YouTube, and you'll find lots of videos. Look for the free mini-series with the classes. As I said before, go through the classes 1 to 3 first. That'll give you a good foundation. And then from there, start just to follow the different videos and start to connect all the different pieces together. So you think, okay, well, I'm feeling stressed, so what do I do? Okay, first of all, consider looking at the world as everything is perfect as it is. I'm in the right place right now. This is all perfect. There is nothing to worry about. From that place, you notice an instant relaxation, instant inner peace. from there, you can say, oh, well, I could look at some other videos. I could check out what's in the other free classes. Which ones are the most relevant to what I'm trying to do in my life right now? And from there, piece by piece, if you make that your regular habits, then what's going to happen is that's going to become your autopilot, and you're going to keep growing. And in no time at all, you'll notice you've created a whole new set of micro experiences that have created a new macro experience of you creating a much happier life. I look forward to meeting you, and I hope you're getting a lot of value out of these free classes. All the best.